I think of the three you sent to me, I chose it because I related to it in that David or whoever the author is believed in God and got comfort from God and then sort of doubted him, right? And I think that that's what's kind of unique about Judaism. There's kind of room for doubt and questioning. And I just related to that a lot.
That was Elise Miller discussing why she chose the song Coffee and Beignet based on Psalm 27 for our conversation. I'm Shep Rosenman. This is The Rest is Commentary, where we discuss what songs inspired by the Psalms inspire in my guests. Elise and I went to high school together at Haftar on Long Island, New York. In those days, she spent all her money buying records and going to concerts. We bonded over a shared love of Springsteen and Elvis Costello and a shared loathing for some of our teachers. Among her many accomplishments, Elise saw Springsteen 101 times. Sadly, she only saw World Party once. Elise runs a successful high-end custom furniture design business. Her greatest accomplishment came in 2006 when she gave birth to a set of twins, Annie and Zeke. They live in Manhattan with their imaginary dog. We discuss living with God and doubting God, the challenge of connecting to the Psalms, the inspiration of being with 20,000 humans of all stripes at a concert, different approaches to prayer, singing during sunset at the lake at summer camp, and so much more. Let's have a listen to Coffee and Beignet. Just another day. The news is savage, dark, gray. Your beauty counters with mystery outshining the eye of heaven. A 26-year-old Balvenie, perfect like the number 7. Just another day, just another day. A cascade of LEDs, you light the way for me. You save me, there's nothing to fear. A cascade of LEDs, you light the way for me. You save me, there's nothing to fear. Just another day. Driving the Ventura Highway, a horse with no name is crackling on the RAV4's FM dial. You sing along, chain reacting. I look in the mirror and smile. Just another day, just another day. A cascade of LEDs, you light the way for me. You save me, there's nothing to fear. A cascade of LEDs, you light the way for me. You save me, there's nothing to fear. Can I compare you to a summer's day? Are you the one that lit the stars? So long as I breathe and my eyes can see, I'll sing you this song. You give life to me. Just another day ends with strong coffee and beignet. The moon cracks the obsidian night, wrapping me in a 3-part chord. One thing I ask in my delight, every day you're home is my reward. Just another day, just another day. A cascade of LEDs, you light the way for me. You say save me, there's nothing to fear. A cascade of LEDs, you light the way for me. You save me, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to fear. Hi, Elise.
Hi, Shep. So good to see you.
So good to see you. So Elise and I went to high school together. I mostly got in trouble in Spanish class. She did really well. She's also the captain of our cheerleading team for the basketball team.
Very important for everyone to know that.
I think you were also the business manager for our yearbook, right?
No, definitely not.
Didn't you have a yearbook role? No?
I was too busy cutting class and going to the city to meet my boyfriend at the time. It was pathetic. So
hardly. You were ahead of the curve.
I was very rah-rah, liked into being social.
And are you still?
I would say by nature I am, but I'm a mom now. So I'm busy working and I'm busy with my kids. And I don't have as much time as I'd like with the people I love. Like you, Shep.
You and me both. That's exactly right. What are your kids' names? Let's give them a shout out.
Annie and Z, my 16-and-a-half-year-old twins, who I adore.
Mind blowing that was 16 and a half years ago.
I know.
So I don't think I said before that you also were the lead singer of my band, but did the band have a name?
I don't know if we ever named our band, actually. Did we? We used to talk about it. I think we talked about it more than we actually made decisions about it.
Yeah, that's probably right. That's probably why we never got out of Gershon Adams's basement.
It was so much fun, though, right? We had such a great time.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. I owe you for that. That's great.
And I think I've sent you the recordings.
Yes. Oh, my God. I didn't know there were. And then my 50th, I guess our friend Alana tracked you down and you tracked Gershon. And he had recordings, and out of nowhere, my friends had a blindfold on me. They took me to karaoke, and I'm thinking, why is there bad Pat Benatar playing? And then I realized it was me, which I was dying of laughter. It was really a great moment.
As you know, the songs I'm writing are songs inspired by the psalmist. I tend to refer to the psalmist as David because that's how we grew up. But as we've learned since then, it's a bunch of other people, possibly. So just as David inspired me, I shared my song with you. This is the song Coffee and Beignet for Psalm 27. And I want to know, what were you curious about? And what did it inspire in you? Thinking, feeling, just anything.
As I've told you in the past, I was not always connected to the Psalms and didn't really feel anything. And I'm a pretty spiritual person seeking out spiritual experiences, but that didn't speak to me. But you asked me to do this, and I listened to your song a few times, and it was interesting, kind of serendipitous that I chose Psalm 27.
Why did you choose it?
I think of the three you sent to me, I chose it because I related to it in that David or whoever the author is believed in God and got comfort from God and then sort of doubted him, right? And I think that's what's kind of unique about Judaism. There's kind of room for doubt and questioning. And I just related to that a lot. And then he sort of goes from taking comfort in God and then doubting him and then once again believing and getting joy out of it. So that really speaks to me because I think for me, I would say happiness for me, and I think a lot of people who are control freaks, happiness by definition is the absence of doubt, right? You know, when you know something, it's comforting. And when you're sure of yourself and you're sure of something, it's like knowledge is power, and knowing something and having sort of a given in your life brings happiness and joy, I think.
Do you have doubt about God now?
Yeah. Very often. I mean, look at the times we're living in. It's very hard to sort of believe it. But then, you know, this is going to sound dramatic, but I'll listen to your song and think, there's God right there.
That's so beautiful.
It's true though. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you've had this experience, when you go to a concert, right? This huge concert and the band or the artist is incredible. And there's this incredible crescendo during the concert. And there's 20,000 people that are completely unified from all different walks of life. And they're all unified and they're all filled with joy, experiencing this common feeling that the music brings up inside of them. And nothing matters outside those doors in that time. And I really believe that, I think music is very much tied to reigniting our belief in God and anything that you see of beauty. But there's so much strife right now. It's very sometimes very hard to believe,
So what do you do when it's hard to believe?
I kind of pray and ask for a sign, or ask for me to believe more, because I want that connection. I want to believe that something transcends everything here, that it's not just this and people suffer and I definitely want to believe that it's not just chaos, but that there's something that transcends this and that we're supposed to overcome and correct, I guess.
You talked about praying, and then you offered two different approaches to prayer. One was asking for a sign. What did you mean by that?
Not necessarily a sign as much as get me to remember or experience again something that connected me to you and to this commonality and to my people. I think that doing things that, we were brought up, right, to do all these different commandments, right? Some are good, some are easier than others. But as I got older, I definitely realized that these mitzvot or commandments that you do connect you. We're concretizing something that sort of connects you. And I think what was great about your song was sometimes you need to connect it to real life so that you're enhancing your religious experience. And like in your song, I think you're bringing sort of God into the car or wherever you are and appreciating God's world. I think that's what you meant.
So it almost sounds like the exercise is you pray to remind yourself of God's existence rather than praying that God will remind you of God's existence. Is that right?
Yeah, somewhat. It definitely makes me feel more connected. Of course, I ask him for things, and I ask for take care of my kids, then heal the world and let me be successful at work and all that stuff. But it definitely reminds me to connect. And also, I try to remind myself during the day, look for things. Don't just leave it at home and sort of look out into the world so that you feel something's more than yourself, right?
Right.
And sort of apply it, maybe. People meditate to be more present. So maybe this is that for me. I don't know.
Do you connect this impulse back to that you're such a social being? Because let me explain why. By being social, you're already engaging with something outside yourself. It's never about you in my experience. It's always about the other person. Like, how are you doing? What's going on with your kids? And then if we press you, you will share what's going on with you. So you're already expanding your world by engaging socially. And I wonder if there's a connection there.
Maybe. I think that you have so many passions, right? And I have to be honest, my biggest passion besides music probably would be connecting to people. I mean, I love meeting people. I love knowing their lives, meeting them and hearing their life story, especially if it's interesting and sort of connecting. I mean, they're not always interesting, but you know what I mean? I just feel like I absolutely am a curious being and always sort of looking to connect. And at the same time, maybe you're right, because I always think of my struggle with religion or God as I want to connect the dots all the time. And sometimes I can't, you know.
What do you mean by connecting the dots?
So I guess I should say prior to having children, I just, my struggle was, well, what's it all about? I always wondered about God and what's the point? And then, my dad died when I was really young, and that just sort of enhanced that feeling of, just set me on a path of searching, actually. And I think it's weird, the things happen and you kind of have aha moments, but it still didn't connect the dots. And I'm still connecting them. But I've had moments where I really feel like, okay, this is why we're here. Like when I had kids, I remember being up in the middle of the night and I had the two twins in the same crib at the time. And I'm looking at them and I was like, oh, that's why I'm here. This is why I'm here. Like, this is why I'm here. Forget all that crap and your something and your bullshit, at least. That, well, am I allowed to say bullshit?
Absolutely.
Anyway, so yeah, it's all about that. And I think, I just think it is all connected, right? Don't they say when the Messiah comes, we'll be singing and dancing, and that's sort of the way you express your joy.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. And song and dance are important parts of the Jewish tradition. When we exited from Egypt, what did we do? Miriam picked up her tambourine and led a song. And then, Moshe, not seeking, because he's a very competitive guy, he led a song,
Right.
So,
well, look,
go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to sort of add to, look at all the musicians that have, that we've seen go on their journey, right? The Beatles. We all watch them look for higher meaning. Leonard Cohen's, he can define his whole career and life by finding meaning in God. And actually, when you sing this song, you sound eerily like him, Shep. Cool.
I will take that as a massive compliment.
It's a massive compliment.
When I write these songs, I try to have the you, like the subject of my song, my conversation partner, where I say, you light the way for me, right? I seek to have that operate on two levels. Obviously, you light the way for me, you save me, there's nothing to fear. Those are almost verbatim from Psalm 27. Le David, to David, Adonai Orivi Ishi, you are my light and my salvation. And then later on, Mimi Efchad, from whom will I fear? Right? So obviously that's the God piece of this. But does this song, if I reframe this for you and tell you that I'm writing it to Shari, who I think is divine, but that's my wife, for those listening, and does that change for you? Like, does it matter that God is in the mix here? Or does this work as a song to my wife?
I don't think they're mutually exclusive, right?
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, no, I mean, it's first of all, it's beautiful that it's to your wife. But I think, when you see certain things and you really love deeply, right? I think that's the heart of Judaism and what God is all about, right? I think so. And, just like God can save someone, your wife or a spouse can save you, right?
Your kids.
And your kids and people that love you,
Yeah.
What would we be without our little villages,
right,
that we create? And I think that's what it's about. And I think that song, right? Your song or a song, just like a religion, can bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put them together. And I mean, I think as a kid, what made me feel best about religion, I think, was when I was in a place with people I loved, and we were singing.
Who was
I
the
remember
cantor at your synagogue growing up?
it was Cantor Ehrlich, who I liked, but I went to sleepaway camp, and we'd have Friday night prayer at the lake, and there'd be this moment where it was just the sun was going down on the lake, and everybody was singing, Adon Olam or whatever it was, and it was just beautiful, and it made me feel safe, and it made me feel warm. I just had this incredible warmth and joy, and like feeling very lucky that I was privileged. I actually remember feeling like I'm so lucky that I get to do this, and that I get to experience this. And I hope other people do too, because it was just, yeah.
First of all, recognizing luck and privilege at 14, 16. I think we met when we were 15. Is that about right? Yeah. Just recognizing luck at that age is already a sign of deep spirituality and, emotional health. So that's awesome. But I think it also triggers this impulse towards wanting to connect the dots, right? Right. Because once you recognize the luck aspect of it, then you place yourself in relationship to the world in a way that acknowledges that maybe perhaps there is something greater. And you mentioned Adon Olam, which literally means master of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. So you would think that that's a focus on transcendence. This is big God that you can't connect to because, they're the master of the universe. And if it's the universe, it's a massive place. They're nowhere near me. I mean, why would they be near me? But yet the author of this piyut, this prayer, ends by saying, Adonai li velo ira. This is my God. Like, God's sitting next to me, and that's why I will not fear.
Yes.
I find your mention of that particular prayer, that particular tefillah, to be evidence of this sense of connection that you have. Do you feel, so the dialectic there is, transcendence, master of the universe, versus immanence, IMMA. God is next to me. Do you experience either of the poles of that dialectic on a daily basis or from time to time?
I wish I did, but no. Much like in the song, what does he say? He says, "Don't hide yourself from me. Don't thrust your servant away in anger. Don't leave me. Don't abandon me." So he's right. David is saying he's a little afraid. Mm-hmm. He's not seeing him as clearly in that. And then he sort of comes back to a place of, I believe him, but I think that we all struggle. We all have that time where we really believe, and then we're like, there's nothing godly going on in the world right now. Mm-hmm. So how do you reconcile that? So I think it's maybe like in every relationship, it's something you have to work harder on because he's hidden, or he's more hidden right now. Yeah. Or I don't know.
And by the he, you mean God.
Right. I mean, right. I feel like right now, it feels like he's more hidden. And maybe some people don't feel that way because maybe they're working harder to connect and busy, working and running home to make dinner for the kids kind of thing. So I'm not always, but it's yeah.
Right. Well, and that's why I think this connects back to the prayer that you mentioned earlier. Right. And your prayer is similar, I think, to David's. Al taster panecha mimeni. Don't, and I think you just quoted this, don't hide your face away from me, blah, 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 blah. Horeini Hashem darkecha. God, show me your ways. But in traditional Jewish prayer, before you approach God, like you're doing a lot of winding up. God, you're awesome. God, you're awesome. God, you're awesome. For a long time, for a lot of verses. And then, you talk about God loving humanity and including the Jewish people, and then us loving God, and we manifest our love by doing mitzvot, right? Mm-hmm. The commandments. And then before we actually approach God, we say, Adonai sfasai tiftach ufi yagid hilasecha. God, open my lips, and then my mouth will sing your praises. Mm-hmm. Not, I'm going to open my mouth so I could sing your praise. I hope it's effective, but God give me the strength, the power to do that. And we have a little bit of that in David's prayer, Horeini Hashem darkecha, God, show me your ways. But then I think that the implicit in what you were saying, and I think baked into this Tehillim, is the last line. Kaveh El Adonai chazak v'yamet libecha v'kaveh El Adonai. How do they translate this? Turn towards God. Is that, look to the Lord, be strong and of good courage. Oh, look to the Lord. This is the translation from Sepharia.org. SEF as in Frank, ARIA. And I mention it because I think embedded within that concept is you must make a choice to look to the Lord. If you just wait for the Lord to come to you, the Lord may not come, or if the Lord does come, you may not notice it, right? And so this goes to your prayer when you said, God, you referred to it first as a sign. You didn't really mean a sign, but help me out here, God.
Right. Show me the way, yeah.
But you have to want that.
Right.
And so what happens when the world is fucked up like it is now, in my opinion, but you want the sign, yet the world is as bad as you're experiencing? Like, how do you manage that tension?
Difficultly. I really admire people that still, their faith is just so solid. I think that it's a tough thing to be, right? I mean, in times of strife, very hard to, I think in what does he say? Don't feed me, it's al tishneni benefit sarai, don't feed me to my enemies, I guess it's translated as. He's kind of saying, God, this is unfair. Like, it's, I don't get it.
Right.
Or that's how I read it. Sometimes, if you're God, why are you doing something unfair? Why are you doing something I don't deserve? So it's always hard to sort of believe that. And then I think, I don't know, everybody must go through that. And when I go through a tough time, which, I mean, thankfully I've had a very good life, but I've been through some pretty tough, dark times. And then I think, well, you know what? It's not the Holocaust, right? It's not cancer, but they're tough times nonetheless. And I feel like it's unfair. Like, am I not a good person? And it's sort of that childish cause and effect that you want to have, right? As a child, you're saying, well, if this happened because I was this way, it's sort of very black and white. And I think as an adult, it's difficult, or it's important to remind yourself that it's not a cause and effect world. It's not black and white like that. And you have to work at your faith. I guess. At least that's what it's for me.
Well, like, what's your process of working at faith? Do you journal? Do you meditate? Do you just pray? All of the above?
I wish I journaled. I wish I did all those things, all those self-help things. But I never read self-help books, right? You know that about me.
Yes, I do.
Because I know I'm not going to do everything, and then I'm going to be more anxious. Like, oh, I'm not doing everything I should do. So I'm not a self-help person, but I pray, and I do try to be present so that I can see things as clear as I can. I really do try to. Even walking down the street in the city, I find I'm not even looking and seeing things. And now I really do try to be more present and pray and look for the stuff that would be a sign. I think if you live looking for them, you might see them. Probably signs all the time, but we don't see them because we're not in or we're not present.
It's like, I believe this is a story from the Talmud. It might be a midrash, but there's the story of the guy who was so interested, so eager to get to Jerusalem that, he walked down this path and he walked and all of a sudden he tripped. And, then he just got up and moved on because he wanted to go to Jerusalem. And then somebody else was walking the path, and I might be butchering this, but I think I'm close. Somebody else is walking the path and they tripped and they looked down and they saw gold, right? So like the first person was emotionally, spiritually was in Jerusalem already and was eager to get his body there. But the second person was present and took the moments to look around and appreciate God's world, bringing it in that moment. And whether it was the experience that was gold or actual gold doesn't matter. It makes the point that you were trying to make. When we think, I touched on this earlier, God has many different names and aspects, right? So there's Elohim, that's the judging God. Mm-hmm. There's the Elkanah, the jealous God or acquiring God, depending on which interpretation you like or how you look at the root of the word kana. There's also, of course, Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, the unpronounceable name in Hebrew that in English often gets translated as Yahweh, which is intended to be a feminine version of God, a God of mercy. But then there's also the Shekhinah, which is also a feminine God. And the Shekhinah, it literally, lishachen means to reside. And so in English, that ends up getting translated as the feminine presence of God, right? Mm-hmm. So if God has an aspect that is always present and omnipresent, if we are supposed to be imitating God, it is incumbent upon us to try to be present, as you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. And in a way, the effort to be present is itself a prayer.
Yeah, I guess.
When you pray, do you get angry at God?
Not so much, but yes, I've been very angry. And when my mom, unfortunately, when she passed, she went through 3 months of it was terrible. It was a lot of pain and it was just unbearable to watch. And it just was relentless, 3 months of it. I remember thinking, I don't know how people go through this. I'm pretty strong. I'm pretty tough. And it wrecked me. It actually wrecked me. And yeah, I was very angry.
Did you express it?
Yes, I was angry. I was mad and completely lost. Completely adrift. And then when she died, it was, I know this sounds crazy. It was like I had PTSD from the whole experience of her suffering. And I think the only thing that did pull me out of it eventually was not only, well, I guess I had to process it because I wasn't processing it on my own. I was very stuck for 6 months. My grief wasn't progressing. And I went to a therapist and it definitely helped because she kind of said, you have PTSD. Mm. The only thing that really got me out of it was I started to pray every day again, whereas I don't pray every day. I pray on the weekends when I have time, but that really did pull me out. And I do think that, it got me to a place, she's still living and she's in a better place. She's not suffering. And it's not really about me and my life. It was her journey. And she was 85. It wasn't like she didn't live long. Yeah, I was extremely angry, actually. Extremely. Enraged, actually. Which is a relief I can get enraged, but I really was.
I don't think I've ever seen you angry, but it's good to know that you can.
Yes.
And did you yell at God in your prayers?
Yes. I yelled at everybody. I really said I was impatient with the world. I think I might have snapped at my friends more. I was just completely couldn't take the good in. I was so mad that he made her suffer and made me have to make these choices that I wasn't prepared to make and question constantly. And it was really, really tough. And then I guess, I had this moment, I think it was during Shemona Esrei.
That's the encounter with God, the silence prayer.
Yes. And I was actually asking for, it's funny that I'm saying this now. I don't think I really put this together yet. I was saying a prayer for someone who was sick. There's a special spot in that prayer. You can do that they should just have ease and not be suffering anymore. And that's what clicked in my head that, maybe she went the way she went and it was meant to be. And she's in a better place now.
Yeah. Look, obviously there's no way for us. Well, let me rephrase this. There's no way for me to know I know people and have met people who claim to be able to know things and can talk to people who've passed into the next world and can talk to angels. There's one particular individual I'm thinking of, and he's always said, your angels are trying to talk to you. I'm like, if they were trying, they need to try a little harder because I'm open to it. I want to hear it. I just like that. It's not been in a way that I can understand.
There might be signs. I don't know. This is just a quick story. My mother used to go to this woman for makeup, and really she was just going to support this woman. I mean, or of the same things. I'd say, Mom, what are you doing? But she was helping this woman out. Anyway, this woman called me about a month ago, and it's 4 years since my mom died. And she said, I just had to share my dream with you because your mother came to me in a dream and said, it's going to be okay about something. And she was alive in the dream, and she was just so herself and so, almost impatient with the negativity. And she said, and tell Elise to stop worrying about Annie and Z. They're fine. And literally she started, I'm at work. She's telling me the story. Tears are coming down. First of all, I'm angry that she's getting the dream and I don't think about her. What was that about? And I said, is that true? Are you telling the truth? And she said, yes. And it was really the worst day, not the worst day, but it was a day where I was especially worried about the kids, just especially worried about them. I thought maybe that is a sign, maybe that is something. I'm like you though. I'm always like, what? Like how, what's the sign?
But I think it goes back to what we were talking about before. I was positing that you have to make you choose to believe, belief is a choice. And obviously, as in theory, rational beings, we want to make our belief in part based on rationality, but it's not always rational. Sometimes like, well, why do you bet on this horse versus that horse? Why do you choose to make a right at this corner versus that corner? You might get into an accident on this corner versus that corner. There is a measure of, maybe it's God's protection, maybe it's also just, haphazard chaos and luck that you didn't turn at that corner. I got into a car accident 10, 15 years ago. And I was debating, am I going to go down Pico or am I going to go down Olympic? I ended up going down Olympic and I got into an accident. If I had gone the other way, maybe that's not the case. Or maybe I would have gotten into an accident anyway, depending on what the theory is. There's a famous Doctor Who episode called Left Turn about how everything changes if he had or hadn't made a left turn.
I think like that movie Sliding Doors.
Yes, exactly right.
Like everything's a choice, right? I mean, you write this beautiful, if this is about Shari, it's like the most incredible love letter I've ever read. And I think that is what inspires music, right? Or poetry. Love is what is the common denominator in that. So do you think that you're always making a choice to sort of renew your love for Shari? And you guys are married a long time.
28 years.
Well, that's a choice.
1,000%. We've had some tough moments in our marriage, but, we chose each time to work through it. And since we've been married, I haven't written a love song that was about a past love. Mm-hmm. And I'm uncomfortable writing pop love songs unless they're about Shari. And on some level, I don't know how to do that. I only know how to do when it bubbles up out of me that this is what I want to write about. Right. And in particular, I can't take full credit for the lyrics in this. The bridge is William Shakespeare. Can I compare thee to a summer's day? I modernized it a little bit because Psalm 27 is in fact a love song. And because I wrote a song that was intended to be a love song, I grabbed pieces of the greatest love poet I could think of. In fact, I'm looking at it now. I grabbed the first line. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? I thought Are You the One That Lit the Stars came from Shakespeare, but I actually think that that's something from the Midrash, kind of rabbinic commentary on Bible verses. But I grabbed the last two lines. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. So I can't take credit for that.
Inspired you to borrow it for the song.
1,000%. Tehillim inspired me to look at the commentary, which inspired me to look at the notion of love, which inspired me to think about Shakespeare. And this is one of my favorites of Shakespeare's. And so I kind of jotted down some notes. And then when it came back to writing the song, since I grabbed the light imagery, I decided to come back to this.
And what about coffee and Beignet reference? Is that your happy place when you have the perfect cup of coffee? And
coffee and beignet? So first of all, I'm a big coffee lover, also a coffee snob. When I want to have a good cup of coffee, I go to one of my favorite haunts, Supa Coffee on Robertson, just north of Pico, or Paper and Plastic on Pico and Genesee. Aharon's Coffee in Beverly Hills. These are among Verve on 3rd. These are like my places.
Right.
And specifically, coffee and beignet comes to mind because when Shari and I were going to Boulder a lot, when Maya was living there, there was a little woman's, Elise's Creole Cafe or something like that. And they had great coffee with chicory, just like you get in New Orleans. These ridiculous beignets. It was like a perfect moment, just the two of us without the kids. So that's a moment that I remember.
Yeah, that's great.
In the same way that I remember, when Shari and we commute to Oxnard a lot. We've got a place up there. So when we're driving up there, sometimes we'll listen to a book, but and sometimes we'll talk, and once in a blue moon we'll listen to comedy, but more often than not, we're listening to music and one or both of us are singing and bopping our heads, and that's that moment. So when you say bring it in, right? It's those moments where I feel the greater than myself because I feel in this relationship. Mm-hmm. That in turn also makes me feel lucky, as you put it before, in summer camp, and puts me in relationship to God when I might otherwise just be driving to Oxnard.
I think that's what it's about, right? I think it's living with intention or not. And look, some people do it all day long. I can't say that I do. I wish I did, but I don't, but I definitely think sort of looking for meaning and doing things that connect you to something or someone does that. Yeah. I have this guilty pleasure now, when the kids are with their dad, because, I'm divorced and he gets them every other weekend. I could spend hours and hours and hours just listening to music by myself. And the day just goes and I'm thinking, oh my God, the whole day's gone. And it's like, and I should feel guilty, but I don't, because it brings me so much pleasure. I feel fuller from it.
Thanks so much for listening. Special thanks to Emil Stern for his help in producing this episode. Please post your comments, like, and subscribe, but most importantly, I hope our conversation inspired you in some way. In the next episode of The Rest is Commentary, I will be talking with my friend, professor, design thinker, and so much more, Abby Pfeiffer Mandel. We're going to talk about loss, family, depression, social networks, and demons. We're going to talk about the contrast between living in the darkness and choosing life when graced with the ability to do so, and so much more.